At my sister-in-law's wedding reception, my husband lifted his champagne glass, cleared his throat, and then, loud enough for the entire ballroom to hear, barked. "You are not family to us." Then, with a smirk dripping with contempt, he added, "You just came here to eat for free." The guests froze. A few giggled awkwardly. And when I turned toward the server, begging silently for at least a slice of food, my husband snapped his fingers and said, "Don't you serve her a thing. She gets nothing." The humiliation should have shattered me. Instead, something stranger happened. A tall, distinguished man with perfectly combed white hair, someone I had never seen before, leaned toward me and whispered, his voice like steel wrapped in velvet. "Take my arm. They will swallow their tongues when they see who you walk with." And that moment, that single moment, was the beginning of everything. But before I tell you how humiliation turned into triumph, we need to go back 2 hours. The sterling Grand Ballroom at the Grand Hyatt Atlanta gleamed so brightly that Emily Carter had to blink to adjust. 1,000 chandeliers washed the room in gold. Polished marble floors reflected back every shimmer of silk, diamond, and champagne. This was the most expensive ballroom in the city, a place where a single cocktail cost more than her mother's monthly check from Social Security. Today, the wealthy Carter family was celebrating. Vanessa Carter, Nathan's spoiled younger sister, was getting married. And as always, her family wanted the entire city to witness their wealth. Emily smoothed the wrinkles on her modest beige dress. She had sewn it herself during the late hours of the night, after finishing the accounting books for her firm. The fabric was good, thick, and clean, but under these lights, surrounded by glittering designer gowns, she felt like a sparrow lost in a flock of peacocks. No one greeted her when she entered. No one even glanced her way. Nathan had rushed here at dawn, claiming he needed to oversee arrangements. Emily knew better. He wasn't overseeing anything, he was drinking with the groomsmen, bragging about business successes that didn't actually exist. She found her name on the guest list. Isolated. Far from the center. Almost hidden. Emily followed the signs through the enormous hall, weaving between women dripping in diamonds and men stuffed tightly into tuxedos. Table 28 sat pressed against the swinging kitchen doors. Heat blasted out every time a server pushed through, along with the sharp smell of onions and roasted meat. Every 2 minutes, someone bumped the back of her chair. They placed her there intentionally. Like contamination. Like shame. At the head table, raised above everyone like royalty, sat Margaret Carter, her mother-in-law. The queen of cruelty. Today she wore so much gold that Emily wondered how her neck hadn't snapped yet. And there, beside her, sat Nathan. Her husband. Red-faced. Drunk. Tie crooked. Laughing loudly with his friends. He didn't look at her. Not even once. Time passed. Toasts echoed. Guests clinked glasses. Someone yelled, "Kiss the bride," and everyone cheered. Tables overflowed with food, filet mignon, jumbo shrimp, crab cakes, lobster rolls, chocolate-drizzled pastries. Except table 28. Emily's plate was empty. She hadn't eaten breakfast. She hadn't eaten lunch. She'd been closing a last-minute audit at work, pushing herself because the firm depended on her. Her stomach twisted painfully. Finally, a young server rushed by with a platter of smoked salmon. Emily hesitated, embarrassment crawling up her throat, but hunger pushed her to lift her hand. "Excuse me," she whispered. "Could I please have just a little? I've been waiting for." The server smiled warmly. "Oh. I'm so sorry, ma'am. Let me." She reached toward Emily's plate. And then a shadow fell over them. A thick, heavy shadow. A large hand slammed onto the server's shoulder. The girl flinched. Emily's breath caught. Nathan. Drunk. Eyes red. Friends behind him smirking like hyenas. "Don't you dare," he roared. The music faded out, the DJ switching tracks, leaving his voice slicing through the hall like a whip. He grabbed Emily's plate from the table. and smashed it onto the floor. The porcelain exploded across the tiles. Gasps everywhere. "Did you forget your place?" Nathan spat, leaning down so close she could smell the expensive liquor and a faint trace of another woman's perfume. "What are you doing?" Emily whispered, voice trembling. "I just haven't eaten." "Oh, she wants to eat?" Nathan shouted to the crowd. "Look at her. She's here to gorge herself." Laughter. Snickers. Hushed whispers spreading like oil on water. At the head table, Margaret Carter smirked. Vanessa covered her mouth, giggling behind it. "You are not family," Nathan hissed. "You are nothing. A parasite. A burden. You came here to freeload off my mother's money." He turned to the trembling server. "If you put one bite of food on her plate, you're fired." The server backed away, pale. The ballroom fell into a suffocating silence. Emily felt something inside her tear, the last thread holding together 10 years of marriage. But she couldn't stand. Her legs were numb, frozen by humiliation. Nathan, satisfied with his performance, turned to leave. And then the air in the room changed. Like a shift in pressure before a storm. From a dark corner, a man stepped forward. Tall. Commanding. Broad-shouldered. His hair was pure white, combed back flawlessly. His black suit looked custom-made, the kind of suit only the powerful wore, the kind stitched by hand in cities where appointments were booked months in advance. No one recognized him. No one had seen him enter. He didn't walk like a guest. He walked like the owner. People moved aside instinctively, as if something primal inside them warned them to make way. He reached Emily's table and stopped in front of her. He didn't glance at Nathan. He didn't glance at Margaret. He looked only at her. Not with pity. Not with disgust. But with understanding. Cold. Clear. Dangerous. He extended his hand. His fingers steady. Unhurried. Unshakably confident. Emily stared at him, breath trapped in her chest. He leaned in slightly. And in a low voice, every syllable cutting the air cleanly, he whispered, "Take my arm, and they will swallow their tongues." Emily's gaze shifted to Nathan, whose face had twisted into fury, and then to Margaret, whose expression collapsed into horror. Her hand trembled. But she placed it on the stranger's arm. The fabric beneath her fingers was expensive and cool. He pulled her to her feet effortlessly. The crowd recoiled as if witnessing a miracle. Nathan's friends backed away, suddenly unsure. The stranger guided her forward. "Let's go," he said. But he didn't lead her to the exit. He led her toward the center of the ballroom. Right toward the stage. Servers froze. Guests whispered. A path opened before them. Nathan tried to lunge forward. "Hey! Who the hell are you? Where are you taking my wife?" The stranger didn't even look at him. He snapped his fingers. Two massive security guards materialized from the shadows and blocked Nathan's path. Their black uniforms carried embroidered initials. Sterling Reed Security. Nathan stumbled back. Emily climbed the small stage with the stranger beside her. The band stopped playing entirely. He adjusted the microphone. Still holding Emily's arm, he spoke, his voice amplified, unwavering, echoing through every corner. "Good evening." His expression did not shift. "My name is Alexander Reed." A wave rippled through the hall. A few older guests gasped. Margaret Carter's face drained of color. Her fork clattered against her plate. Alexander continued. "I own this ballroom." Silence. "And I am forced to interrupt this celebration." The word celebration dripped with disdain. He let the tension linger, savoring the collective breath the room held. "This wedding," he said, "is cancelled. Effective immediately." Screams erupted. Vanessa shot to her feet. You can't do that. You can't just. Alexander turned his gaze on her. One look. Just one. She fell silent. You didn't pay, he said coldly. Your mother didn't pay either. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket and dropped it to the floor. They tried, he said. But the checks bounced an hour ago. Every account linked to Margaret Carter is empty. More whispers. Gasps. Faces twisting in disbelief. You are broke. The music is over. He snapped his fingers. Security, remove everyone who didn't pay. The room exploded into chaos. And then he lifted Emily's hand, higher, for all to see. This woman stays. She's the only person in this family with a conscience. Now get out. Alexander Reed's voice thundered across the ballroom with the force of a judge delivering a final verdict. Vanessa's scream cut through the room next, shrill, furious, untamed. It rose above even the crash of dishes being swept off tables by panicked guests. The bride, so elegant minutes earlier, hurled her bouquet straight at her mother's face. White roses exploded across the polished hardwood floors like shattered snowflakes. What do you mean there's no money? Vanessa wailed, stomping her gown so hard the tulle quivered. Mom! You promised. You said everything was paid for. The entire city is watching, we're humiliated. The ballroom dissolved into chaos. Guests who moments earlier dignifiedly nibbled hors d'oeuvres now scrambled like a stampede, chairs toppled, glasses shattered, expensive wine bottles accidentally slipped into purses as people bolted toward the exit. But the doors were already blocked by managers. The Sterling Grand didn't let debtors run. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed, growing closer, fast. The police were coming. Alexander tightened his hold on Emily Carter's arm and led her off the stage, not toward the screaming crowd, but through a side service door. They slipped into a narrow back corridor that smelled of bleach and overboiled vegetables. Cooks froze mid-step as they passed, eyes wide with fear, hearing only muffled chaos behind the thick walls. Emily's hands trembled so violently she had to curl them into fists. They emerged through a steel door into the staff parking lot. The night air was heavy, damp, carrying the scent of rain and gasoline. Alexander's sleek black SUV waited at the curb, engine already humming. Everything was coordinated. Controlled. Then. Stop! The roar made Emily jump. Nathan Carter stumbled out from the same door, swaying violently as he clung to the frame for balance. He was a mess. His jacket was open, his shirt wrinkled and half untucked, hair damp with sweat. His face, red, twisted, drunk, was a portrait of rage and humiliation. When he spotted Emily, he lunged. "Where the hell do you think you're going?" he shouted, grabbing at her arm. "This is your fault. All of it. You brought bad luck the moment you opened your mouth. You cursed my family." Emily's back hit the cold metal of the SUV. In Nathan's eyes she saw something worse than anger, something unhinged. He drew back his fist, aiming for her face. Emily flinched. But the hit never came. A massive hand intercepted Nathan's wrist mid-swing. One of Alexander Reed's bodyguards, Marcus Hill, a stone-faced giant, twisted Nathan's arm with a controlled, precise motion. Nathan screamed, collapsing onto his knees in a puddle of oil and rainwater. "One more move toward her," Alexander said quietly. His voice wasn't loud. But it froze the night. "And you'll be picking your teeth up with broken fingers." Nathan gasped and kicked helplessly, but Marcus pressed a boot onto his jacket, pinning him to the asphalt like a crushed insect. "Get in," Alexander ordered Emily. She obeyed, sliding into the SUV. The door slammed shut, muting Nathan's howling and the approaching sirens. The car glided onto the street, leaving behind a destroyed wedding, a screaming husband, police lights spiraling across the walls, and a family empire collapsing in real time. They didn't speak for 10 minutes. Emily stared out at downtown Atlanta, the glowing buildings, the blur of taillights, the city that didn't care her entire life had just imploded. 10 years of marriage. 10 years of swallowing humiliation. 10 years of bending herself until she almost snapped. All ruptured tonight like a festering wound. The SUV slowed in front of a 24-hour coffee shop, plain, quiet, tucked between a tax office and a dry cleaner. A place no Carter would ever step foot in. Inside, warm jazz drifted through the air. The scent of coffee was comforting, steady. Human. Alexander chose a booth concealed behind a decorative wooden screen. The waiter brought a pot of green tea. Alexander poured her a cup himself, his movements calm, precise, no wasted motion. "Drink," he said. His tone left no room for refusal. Emily wrapped both hands around the mug, trying to stop her teeth from chattering. "Why did you do this?" she finally whispered without raising her head. "Why did you take me away? They'll destroy me now. You don't understand Margaret Carter. She never forgives anything." Alexander's lips curled, not kindly. More like a predator amused by a slower animal. "Margaret Carter," he said, "is currently explaining to the Atlanta Police Department why she hosted a $300,000 event with exactly $0 in her accounts." He leaned back. "Trust me. She has bigger problems than you." He reached into his leather briefcase and pulled out a thin file. "Emily," he said, "you still believe they're wealthy? The mansion, the cars, the logistics company, you think it's all real?" Emily nodded weakly. "They have a freight business," she whispered. "Warehouses, trucks. Nathan always said the company was doing well. They just had temporary setbacks. I gave them my salary to help." Alexander laughed, short, cold. "Reinvest. A pretty word for financial suicide." He tapped the folder. "They've been bankrupt for 5 years. They live on credit. They take out loans to cover older loans. Margaret pawned her jewelry last year." Emily's breath hitched. "That wedding," he said, "was their last desperate gamble. They hoped Vanessa would marry rich and drag them out of the hole." He leaned closer. "It didn't work." Emily felt the ground shift beneath her. "What? How? None of this makes sense." Alexander opened the file and spun it toward her. 3 years ago," he said, "Nathan brought you papers to sign. He told you it was a formality. Something about life insurance or pension paperwork." Emily's heartbeat hammered. That night. She remembered blurry pieces. He brought her tea. He was strangely affectionate. He made jokes. He said, "Just sign here. It's nothing." She had been exhausted after closing quarterly books. "Yes," she whispered. "He said it was for a tax deduction. I didn't read it." "Look again," Alexander said. Emily focused on the top document. The words sharpened into clarity. Deed of gift, transfer of real estate. Executive resolution, change of ownership. Property title transfer. Her fingers went numb. The property listed. The Carter Mansion. The Davis Freight and Logistics Headquarters. 3 warehouses. 2 parcels of land. And under owner. Only one name. Emily Carter. I don't understand," Emily whispered, horrified. "This can't be right." Alexander leaned in, eyes cold and sharp. "It's perfectly right. Their creditors were circling. Confiscation was hours away. They needed someone clean. Someone dull, harmless, invisible." He tapped the signature line. "You." Emily's stomach twisted. "They plan to leave everything in your name temporarily. Then, after a divorce, they'd force you to sign it all back. Neat and tidy." Her breath shattered. The mansion Margaret tried to kick her out of tonight. The company Nathan bragged about. Everything he used to impress his mistress. All of it legally belonged to Emily. "They never had time to reverse it," Alexander said softly. "And now?" You are the exclusive owner of every asset they depend on. He lowered his voice. You own the house they live in. You own the company that pays their bills. You own the warehouse key Nathan waves around like a trophy. You own the fork Margaret uses for breakfast. Silence swallowed the booth. Emily stared at the signature, her signature, some naive version of herself believing she was helping her husband. What do I do now? She breathed. For the first time, Alexander smiled. A real smile. Now, he said. Now the fun begins. He stood. We're going home. Emily stepped out of Alexander's SUV onto the familiar gravel driveway. The towering iron gate stood before her, cold and imposing. She held the folder so tightly her knuckles shone white. Alexander didn't follow her out. He simply met her eyes with a solemn nod, one that said, "You're not the victim anymore. You're the owner. Go claim what's yours. This is your battle now, and the weapon is already in your hands." Alexander Reed's words echoed in Emily's chest as his SUV turned the corner and disappeared into the dark. For the first time, she stood alone in front of the house she had lived in for 10 years, the house she now knew was legally hers, yet had always felt like an enemy fortress. A single light glowed in an upstairs window. That was wrong. Nathan should have been somewhere in Atlanta, drowning his humiliation in alcohol after the ballroom disaster. Margaret Carter was definitely still answering uncomfortable police questions. So who was inside? Emily unlocked her clutch and pulled out her keys. Her hands trembled, not from fear anymore, but from a cold, razor-sharp adrenaline rush. She slid the key into the massive oak door's lock. It didn't turn. She tried again. Nothing. She pressed harder, teeth clenched. Still nothing. A chill rolled through her. Nathan had changed the locks. While she sewed her dress. While she worked overtime to pay their bills. While she stood humiliated in front of 200 guests. Nathan had already prepared to kick her out. He wasn't planning to let her back in, not tonight, not ever. Before today, she would have crumpled on the steps and cried. She would have called him. Begged. Pleaded. But now? Now she had the folder. And power. Emily stepped back and dialed the 24-hour emergency locksmith. "I need access to my home," she said firmly. "I have the property deeds in hand." The locksmith arrived 20 minutes later, a stocky man dragging a heavy toolbox. He eyed her beige dress and then the mansion. "You're the owner?" he grunted. "Then why don't the keys work?" "My husband changed them." Emily opened the folder. "Here's the deed. Here's my license. Compare them." The man shone his flashlight over the documents. His shoulders lowered. "Yes, ma'am. Everything's in order. I'll get you in." A drill whined sharply through the quiet neighborhood. 5 minutes later, the door clicked open. Emily paid him, stepped inside, and locked it behind her. She inhaled. A thick wave of expensive perfume clung to the air. Familiar. Uncomfortably familiar. She moved down the marble hallway, her heels echoing dully against the floor. At the staircase landing, she hesitated, then ascended toward the master bedroom. She intended to pack her things and leave. A hotel, maybe. Anywhere but here. But the door to the master suite was cracked open. Emily pushed it softly. And froze. A woman lounged on the marriage bed, her bed draped in Emily's terrycloth robe. The robe Emily had bought with her bonus months ago. She was flipping through a magazine, one leg bouncing casually. Sabrina Hayes. Vanessa's best friend. And one of the bridesmaids. The woman who had smiled sweetly at Emily hours ago. Sabrina looked up, unfazed. Her lips curved into a slow, triumphant smile. Well, she purred. "Look who finally showed up." She tossed the magazine aside. "I assumed Nathan told you there's nothing for you here anymore." "How'd you get in?" Break the lock? That's a felony, sweetheart. Emily stared at her. Sabrina. In her robe. In her bedroom. And suddenly the missing pieces clicked together. The late nights. The excuses. The sudden meetings. The perfume on Nathan's shirts. Sabrina rose from the bed with theatrical laziness. She tightened the robe belt around her waist, then picked up an object from the nightstand. A pregnancy test. She held it inches from Emily's face. See this? 2 pink lines. Nathan is thrilled. Emily's breath stopped. We've been together for 2 years, Sabrina said, smirking. In case you, the oblivious house accountant, didn't notice. She strutted across the room. The lawyers were already preparing the paperwork to reverse the assets. Nathan said you'd sign everything soon, and we could finally get rid of you. She gestured at the bed. But since you're already here, grab your rags and get out. This house is mine now. Nathan finally has a real family, not whatever circus you brought. A cool wave of fury rose inside Emily. Not hysteria. Not heartbreak. Something colder. Sharper. Deadlier. Your house. Emily repeated quietly. Mine? Sabrina smirked. And his baby. And where does that leave you? Nowhere. A maid they forgot to fire. Emily didn't scream. She didn't fight. She simply reached for her phone. She had noticed the neighborhood security company sticker near the front door earlier, Centurion Security Services, and remembered seeing the contract in Alexander's folder. She dialed. Centurion Security. How may I assist you? This is Emily Carter, she said clearly. Forest Lane, House 5. Contract 784B. I am the homeowner. I need an immediate response team dispatched. I have trespassers threatening my safety. Sabrina laughed. Are you insane? Security works for Nathan. They salute him. They won't. Emily walked calmly to the window armchair and sat, placing the folder on her lap. You have about 5 minutes, she said softly, to take off my robe. Then she looked out the window. 3 minutes later, the front door slammed. Babe? Sabrina, where are you? Nathan's voice echoed up the stairs. He rushed into the bedroom, still in his filthy suit, sweating, out of breath. Can you believe the nerve of that witch? Emily. He froze. Emily sat in the armchair, legs crossed. How did you get in? Nathan roared. Get out. I told you, you're done here. He didn't finish. Tires screeched outside. A vehicle with flashing lights turned into the driveway. 3 armed guards in tactical gear stormed into the house. Boots thundered up the stairs. The lead guard, Marcus Hill, stepped into the bedroom. Who placed the emergency call? He barked. Nathan lunged forward, assuming authority like he always did. Guys, relax. It's fine. This is my ex-wife. She broke in. We're about to throw her out. Marcus didn't even look at him. Your last name? He asked, scanning his tablet. Carter, Nathan said quickly. Nathan Carter. I'm the ow. Marcus cut him off sharply. The registered owner of this property is Emily Carter. He lifted his gaze. Which one of you is Emily Carter? Emily rose. I am. Here are the documents. These 2 are trespassing and threatening me. I want them removed from my home immediately. Nathan's face turned a horrifying shade of red. What are you talking about? Emily, stop this. Guys, you know me. I pay your. You haven't paid in 3 months, Marcus replied flatly. The contract is in Ms. Carter's name only. Orders received. He gestured. Sir, step out. One guard grabbed Nathan by the elbow. "Don't touch me!" Nathan shrieked. "This is my house." "Sabrina, say something." Sabrina went pale, clinging to the wall. "Ma'am," another guard pointed at her, "you need to leave as well. If you don't have your own clothes." "That's my robe," Emily said calmly. "She's wearing my property." Marcus nodded. "Remove it." Sabrina's face twisted with shame and fury. She tore off the robe and stood in nothing but her lace lingerie. She snatched her dress from the floor, covering herself, mascara dripping down her face. "You'll pay for this," she hissed. "Nathan will destroy you." "Exit," Marcus barked. Nathan and Sabrina were dragged out, down the stairs, through the front door, into the storm. They screamed, threatened, begged. Security didn't flinch. The rain intensified. Emily stood at the window and watched. Nathan, humiliated, soaked, shivering in his dirty shirt. Sabrina, mascara streaks, clutching her dress, slipping on the wet pavement. They pounded on the small gate, shouting, but the roar of the storm swallowed their words. Emily turned away. The house was silent. She walked to the small kitchen off the master suite, filled the kettle, and set it on the stove. She found her favorite mug, the one she used to hide so Vanessa's friends wouldn't break it. Boiling water. A slice of lemon. A quiet breath. She carried the warm cup back to the bedroom. For the first time in years, the house was hers. Emily switched off the overhead light, leaving only the soft glow of the floor lamp warming the room. She lowered herself into the armchair by the window, wrapped both hands around the mug of hot tea, and exhaled slowly. Outside, beyond the iron fence, two soaked figures stumbled in the rain, Nathan Carter and his mistress, Sabrina Hayes, sputtering and slipping like fallen royalty stripped of their crowns. For the first time in a decade, Emily Carter, the quiet wife everyone dismissed as a nobody, sat safe and warm in the home she now knew was legally hers. The air in her chest felt lighter, cleaner, almost unfamiliar. But she also knew something else. Margaret Carter wouldn't fall quietly. Emily expected Monday to start with coffee. It started with carnage instead. She sat at her desk in the accounting department, trying to focus on the quarterly report. The numbers shifted like liquid, blurred by exhaustion and everything that had happened that weekend. She barely slept. Every sound in the enormous mansion, her mansion, had jolted her awake. She was waiting for a blow from the Carter family. But not this one. The office door slammed open with such force that dust rained from the frame. Margaret Carter stormed in. No makeup. All black like she was mourning a death, probably the death of her reputation. A dark scarf wrapped dramatically around her head. Behind her waddled Nathan's aunt, a heavy-set woman already dabbing her tears, and two distant relatives Emily barely recognized from the wedding. "There she is!" Margaret wailed, pointing a trembling finger at Emily, her rings glittering like weapons. "There's the snake we raised in our home." All 10 employees froze. Phones lowered. Keyboards stopped. Breaths held. "Everyone, look at her!" Margaret cried, clutching her chest like a tragic actress from an old movie. "We fed her, clothed her, treated her like a daughter, and she threw us out into the rain. She left my son with nothing." Nathan's aunt broke into dramatic sobs. "She stole the family home. She ruined our legacy. How can the earth even carry such a wicked girl?" Emily shot to her feet, her chair clattering backward. "Margaret Carter, stop this. This is my workplace. I don't care." Margaret dropped the wounded bird act and lunged toward Emily's desk, towering over her. "Let everyone hear what you are, a thief. A fraud. You forged the documents. You tricked my son. Give us back the house, you trash, or I'll come here every day until they fire you publicly." Phones came up. Someone started recording. Heat rushed to Emily's face. Her pulse hammered in her ears. For a moment, she felt like she was 12 again, shamed in front of the whole class. Then, "What is going on here?" Arkady Petrovich, the CEO, stood in the doorway, jaw clenched. Margaret immediately switched to her grieving mother persona and threw herself at his feet. "Help us, sir. Your employee is a criminal. A heartless witch who left my family homeless. She stole everything." Petrovich recoiled. His eyes landed on Emily with irritation, not sympathy. "Emily Carter," he snapped. "My office. Now." His office smelled of expensive cigars and intimidation. Emily stood silently as he paced behind his desk. "I don't tolerate chaos, Emily," he said sharply. "Our firm has a reputation. And what do I see here? Police, screaming relatives, fraud accusations." "It's slander," Emily whispered. "They transferred the assets to me to hide them from creditors. I didn't steal anything." "I don't care," he roared, slamming his hand on the desk. "Handle your drama outside. Margaret Carter has influence in this city. If she starts filing complaints, we'll drown in audits." He leaned over the desk. "You have two choices. Give them back everything today. Or resign." Emily stumbled out of the office. The hallway was silent, cleared out by security, but the air still stank of humiliation. No one met her eyes. No one asked if she was okay. Outside, she pressed against the brick wall, her breath trembling. Her hands shook so badly she couldn't even light the cigarette she hadn't touched in 3 years. Maybe she should just give up. Sign the papers. Hand over the house. The company. Everything. Who was she to fight the Carters? Just an accountant. They were elite. Wealthy. Connected. Or they pretended to be. Her phone vibrated. An unknown number. "Hello?" Emily whispered. "Ready to give it all back already?" Alexander Reed's voice cut through her panic like a blade. "I heard about Margaret's little circus. Effective showmanship." Emily slid down the wall. "I can't do this, Alex. They're destroying me. My boss hates me. Everyone hates me. I'm not built for this." "Yes, you are." His tone snapped like a command. "You love numbers. And numbers don't lie. Margaret is bluffing because she has no power left. She just humiliated me. She's terrified of you, Emily." Emily let out a broken laugh. "Terrified? She's scared because you are the owner now. And you still haven't done the first thing every owner must do." "What?" "An audit." Emily froze. "You have access to Davis Freight and Logistics accounts," Alexander said. "Nathan and Margaret didn't just want the company back. They wanted what's inside those records hidden forever." "What am I looking for?" "Large transfers. Last year. Vague descriptions, consulting, charity, medical expenses. Start with August 18th. The call ended. Emily ran back inside. She ignored the stares, sat at her desk, and plugged in the flash drive, her electronic signature. Login. Access granted. She opened last year's statements. Fuel payments. Driver salaries. Routine transactions. Then, August 18th. $300,000 withdrawal. Recipient, S.A. Waranov, attorney at law. Description, legal services. Another 2 days later. $200,000. Recipient, New Life Private Surgical Clinic. Description, employee health insurance payment. Her brow tightened. The company had no employee health insurance. She searched the lawyer's name. Sergei Waranov. Specialized in criminal cases, serious traffic accidents. Her stomach dropped. She remembered August 18th. Vanessa Carter had come home shaking, pale, without her red convertible. She'd claimed the transmission failed. She drank nearly half a bottle of brandy and locked herself in her room. And the next day, Margaret suddenly sold their lake house. Emily pulled up the scanned medical documents. Patient: Andrew Kovalev. Age: 11. Traumatic brain injury. Multiple fractures. Her throat tightened. Vanessa had hit a child. And they buried it. Paid the parents off. Paid the lawyers. Paid the clinic. And the worst part? The payer field read: Davis Freight and Logistics Inc. Signed electronically by Emily Carter. The signature Nathan told her to create just to make paperwork easier. He had set her up for a crime she didn't know existed. They had paid for Vanessa's crime using company money that legally belonged to Emily. They had laundered the entire bribe through her firm. Emily leaned back in her chair, her arms suddenly numb. If this ever came to light, Vanessa would face charges for the hit and run. But Emily, as the official owner and director, would take the fall for financial fraud, bribery, using company funds to conceal a felony. Margaret Carter didn't just want the mansion back. She wanted control of the evidence. And if that failed, she would leave Emily holding the bag alone when that injured boy's family decided to come forward again. A cold wave washed over her. Being fired was the least of her problems. She was staring down real prison time. A decade behind bars for crimes she didn't commit. The only way not to go to jail, she whispered, is to turn them all in. Her hand slammed the laptop shut, as if the screen were a cursed box ready to unleash something monstrous. But the numbers, $300,000, $200,000, burned in her mind. And the boy's name burned even hotter. Emily Carter. A quiet accountant. Facing prison as an accomplice in a felony. Her hand trembled toward her phone to call Alexander Reed. But her fingertip froze above the screen. What if Alexander was using her too? He had known where to look. He had known what she would find. He had known she was vulnerable. Maybe she wasn't a rescued damsel. Maybe she was just a pawn for everyone, for Margaret, for Nathan, even for Alexander. The phone vibrated in her hand. Nathan Carter. Emily nearly let it ring out. She wanted to block him, delete him from her life like a virus. But every cell in her body screamed, "You need to know what they're planning." She answered. "Yes," she said flatly. "Emily." His voice was unrecognizable, thin, cracked, stripped of all the arrogance he'd thrown at her last night in the rain. "Please, don't hang up. We need to talk. Not as enemies. As people who spent 10 years together. We have nothing to talk about, Nathan. I saw the documents." "I know," he blurted. "I know everything. Mom's lost her mind. Emily. I'm scared. I don't want to go to prison. And I don't want you going either." He swallowed hard. "Please. Meet me at the Riverwalk Park. Just you and me." Emily hesitated. But fear of orange jumpsuits and steel cell doors, pushed her. The meeting. An hour later, Emily sat on a bench in the open part of the park. Mothers pushed strollers. Retirees fed ducks. The sun glowed warm and gentle. It was insane that somewhere in this peaceful world, children were maimed and crimes were buried. Nathan arrived right on time. Emily's chest tightened despite herself. He looked wrecked. Always perfectly dressed, freshly shaved, polished like a showroom mannequin. Now he looked like something dragged out of a gutter. Wrinkled shirt. 3-day stubble. Hollow eyes. Weight lost in a matter of days. He didn't sit beside her. He stood at a distance like a reprimanded schoolboy. "Thank you for coming," he croaked. "What do you want, Nathan? The money? The house?" Nathan suddenly dropped to his knees in front of her. To hell with the house. To hell with the money. I've lost everything. His voice cracked. Sabrina left. The moment security dragged us out, when she realized I had nothing, she ran. She didn't love me. She loved my wallet. He choked on a bitter laugh. You were right. About everything. Emily stayed silent, but something cold inside her softened, just a little. I'm sorry, he whispered, tears gathering. I'm weak. Mom has controlled me my whole life. She planned everything, putting the company in your name, covering for Vanessa, all of it. I swear I didn't want this. I was too afraid to stand up to her. He reached out, barely touching her knee with trembling fingers. I don't want a war. I don't want lawsuits. I'm tired. Let's end this. How? Emily asked. You're the owner, Nathan said quietly. But the company is poison, felonies hanging over its head. Let's sell everything. He sat beside her, but still kept a respectful distance. I already have buyers lined up, for the mansion, for the company licenses, even with the debts. We sell everything, pay off the loans, and whatever's left, we split. He swallowed. That's maybe 5-8 million each. We can both leave. You always wanted the ocean, remember? Miami? Let's split the money and disappear. His voice softened. Or we could start over. Somewhere far from my mother. Just you and me, like college days. Emily stared at the river. She remembered the boy he used to be, kind, funny, broke but generous. He carried her when she sprained her ankle. Bought her daisies because roses were too expensive. Was that boy still in there? Selling everything and running, it sounded like salvation. No mansion cursed with betrayal. No company filled with secrets. No lawsuits. No Margaret Carter. Just peace. Did you really break up with Sabrina? She whispered. I kicked her out, he said instantly, looking her straight in the eyes with disarming sincerity. Emily. I love you. I messed up. But I love you. He took her hand. My notary, Robert Ellington, can prepare everything. Tomorrow at noon, you sign the power of attorney. You stay in full control, I promise. Emily closed her eyes. She wanted, desperately, to believe him. Okay, she whispered. We'll sell everything. Nathan let out a shaky breath of relief and pressed his forehead to her shoulder. Thank you. You're an angel, Emily. A saint. He left quickly, as if afraid she'd change her mind. The truth. That evening, Emily packed her belongings. She'd leave right after the sale. A small apartment. A clean slate. Maybe even a second chance with Nathan. She poured herself a glass of wine and stepped onto the balcony, letting the city lights calm her. Her phone buzzed. A message from Alexander Reed. No text. Just a video file. Emily didn't want to open it. She wanted to protect the fragile piece she'd found today. But her thumb tapped play. The footage was crystal clear, recorded from a hidden camera, likely tucked inside a bouquet or table decoration. A fancy steakhouse. Nathan sat comfortably, not distressed at all, eating steak, swirling whiskey. Across from him sat two men. A bald, heavy-set man. A thin man with the cold eyes of a surgeon. She bought it? The fat man asked. Nathan smirked. Like a lamb. I know exactly what to say to her. I love you, let's start over. She swallowed all of it. He shoveled steak into his mouth. Tomorrow at noon, she'll be at your office, Ellington. Papers ready? The fat notary nodded. General power of attorney for all assets. Once she signs, everything belongs to you. She's penniless. And then what? The man in glasses asked. Nathan turned toward him, toward Dr. Leonard Price, his expression sharp with calculation. And then, doctor, it's your cue, he said coldly. As soon as she signs, you step in. Hysteria. Erratic behavior. A threat to herself and others. You can document all that, right? Dr. Price nodded without emotion. My orderlies are waiting at the service entrance, he said calmly. A private team. They don't ask questions. One sedative shot, a restraint jacket, and straight to the clinic. For how long? Nathan asked. Legally? Dr. Price shrugged. Months. While you liquidate the assets, she'll be pumped full of haloperidol. She won't remember her own name. Nathan laughed. Not the broken man crying at the Riverwalk, but the ruthless predator he truly was. Perfect. Tomorrow afternoon, I'll be a rich bachelor again, and my wife will be counting dots on padded walls. They clinked their glasses. Emily dropped the phone. It hit the carpet with a dull thud. The screen froze on Nathan Carter's satisfied face. The face of the man who had cried on her shoulder barely an hour ago, and was now plotting to drug her, restrain her, and steal every dollar she owned. She slid down the wall. Wine spilled onto the pale carpet, blooming like a dark flower. She didn't even notice. Her world didn't just collapse. It inverted, revealing the rot underneath. The fear evaporated. The tears never came. Something deeper formed in its place. A void. A black hole of pure, crystalline hatred. She picked up her phone. Her hands moved automatically, detached from emotion. She typed to Alexander Reed. I saw it. What do I do tomorrow? His reply came instantly, as if he had been waiting. Tomorrow, you will go to that meeting. But you will not sign what they put in front of you. Emily pushed open the heavy glass door of Robert Ellington's notary office. The place smelled of expensive leather and dust. The smell of old money and older corruption. The receptionist typed with nails so long they clicked like claws. Emily walked past her without slowing. Inside the office, Nathan sat in an armchair, leg crossed, twirling a luxury pen. Behind the oak desk sat Robert Ellington, the same greasy man from the video. Nathan sprang to his feet. The mask of devoted husband snapped back on instantly. Emily, sweetheart. You came. God, I was afraid you'd change your mind. Sit down, darling. Water? Tea? Emily ignored him and took the empty seat. She set her purse on the floor. Her back straightened like steel. She knew a private ambulance was waiting outside. She knew Dr. Leonard Price was probably behind one of these walls with a syringe. But the fear was gone. Only cold, surgical precision remained. Let's get to it, she said. I'm missing work. Ellington licked his lips and slid a thick document toward her. Of course, Ms. Carter. Everything is prepared. A general power of attorney transferring full management of all assets to your husband, with rights to redelegate and sell. Sign here, and... Nathan leaned close, breath smelling of mint gum covering alcohol. Sign it, baby. We'll go home. I'll handle everything. You won't have to lift a finger. Emily lifted the pen. Nathan held his breath. Ellington leaned forward, eyes gleaming. Emily shoved the power of attorney aside. Instead, she opened her own folder and removed a single sheet. You're right, Nathan, she said softly. I will sign everything. But not this. She signed the sheet with a smooth flourish, then slid it across the desk. Read it. Nathan blinked, confused. What is this? We're selling the house, Emily. Stop playing. Read, she repeated sharply. He snatched it. His eyes scanned the text. His face lost all color. In connection with gross violations of official duties, systematic embezzlement of corporate funds, and use of company accounts to conceal a felony. Terminate Nathan A. Carter from the position of executive director, effective immediately, without severance. Nathan's hand shook. This is a joke. I'm the director. This is MY. Emily calmly pulled out another paper. A bank statement. Yours? According to every legal document, it's mine, she said. And here's proof you transferred $500,000 to bribe a lawyer and a private surgical clinic. Using my company. To cover up Vanessa hitting a child. U.S. Code Title 18, Fraud. Money laundering. Healthcare conspiracy. Silence. Only the hum of the air conditioner. Nathan stared at the paper as if it were a live snake. You, he hissed. You stupid. He looked at Ellington. Call Dr. Price. Now. She's unstable. She's having a breakdown. But Ellington didn't move. He was sweating through his shirt, trembling. Mr. Carter, he whispered, voice cracking. There's a problem. What problem? Nathan roared. If we restrain her now, after she signed a termination order in front of witnesses, it becomes kidnapping. Ellington swallowed hard. And we go to prison. Nathan froze. Cornered. His plan collapsing. Then what do we do? He barked. Ellington shoved a stack of papers toward him with shaking hands. You must immediately sign a protocol stating you are aware of the accusations but deny them. We'll frame this as a corporate dispute. Then her order won't hold until a court decides. While the court deliberates, we can. His eyes flicked toward the door. Nathan understood. He grabbed the pen. He didn't read a single page. He just saw the little pencil marks where Ellington indicated. Here, here, here. Swoosh. 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 He signed page after page, desperate to finish. There. Done. He threw the pen down. Now call the damn orderlies. At that moment, Ellington scooped up the papers, hugging them to his chest like a newborn. The door burst open. But it wasn't orderlies. Two massive security guards stepped inside. Behind them, Alexander Reed. Nathan froze. Ellington shrank in his chair. Alexander's cold gaze swept the room. Robert Ellington's voice cracked as he cowered behind his mahogany desk. I'm sorry, Mr. Carter, he stammered, wiping sweat from his bald head. Mr. Sterling has very persuasive arguments. And he knows about my South Beach real estate mess. I cannot go to jail. Nathan Carter backed up so fast he slammed into the bookcase behind him. What the hell is going on? He demanded, voice trembling more with fear than anger. Emily Carter rose slowly from her chair, her expression calm, too calm. She reached toward the trembling notary and plucked the document Nathan had just signed, turning it toward him like a death sentence. You were in such a rush, darling, she said softly. You didn't even bother looking at the title. Nathan squinted. His stomach dropped. This wasn't a disagreement protocol. Across the top, in bold block letters, was printed. What is this? He whispered. Emily's voice hardened into steel. It's your confession. You admit you've been embezzling company funds for personal use for the last 5 years. And you agreed to repay Davis Freight and Logistics, she paused, letting the word slice like a blade, $15 million. Within 24 hours. Nathan turned ghost white. His signature at the bottom, bold, confident, unmistakably his, stared back like a death warrant. This is illegal, he croaked. Forgery. I'll report. Alexander Reed stepped forward, calm as a surgeon. Report away, he said. The notary verified your capacity. And the security camera, right there, recorded you signing voluntarily. Nathan's legs gave out. He slid down the wall, collapsing onto the floor. You're bankrupt, Alexander added coldly. And now you owe my niece everything you own, down to your socks. Outside the building, a private ambulance engine growled to life. It drove away empty. The patient could no longer pay. The moment Nathan limped out of the notary's office, defeated and drowning in debt, his family launched their last weapon. Public destruction. Before Emily even reached home, her phone blew up with notifications. Instagram. Neighborhood watch pages. City gossip blogs. Messenger group chats. Dozens of videos. Hundreds of comments. In one viral clip, Margaret Carter, barefaced, hair wild, eyes swollen, sat before a crucifix, crying into the camera with dramatic holy sorrow. "Good people," she sobbed, wringing her hands. "Look at this woman, Emily Carter. We took her in when she had nothing. Fed her. Clothed her. We treated her like a daughter. And she repaid us by seducing a dangerous gangster, forcing my son to sign away his business, and throwing us onto the street." Her crying intensified. "She's a thief. She's sleeping with a criminal for money." It spread through Atlanta like gasoline catching fire. Burn the witch. She ruined that poor family. Where's the police? Such a gold digger. Emily felt like a walking disease. That evening, desperate for milk and bread, she slipped into a grocery store wearing a baseball cap and zipped-up coat. She hoped, prayed, no one would recognize her. But hate has sharp eyes. "That's her," a heavy-set woman gasped by the produce section. "That's the woman who kicked her mother-in-law out on the street." Dozens of eyes snapped toward Emily. A small elderly woman pushed forward, face twisted in disgust. "Don't you feel shame?" she hissed. "Don't you have a mother of your own?" "I just need to get through," Emily whispered, abandoning her basket, trying to slip away. "Where do you think you're going?" the heavy woman shrieked. And without hesitation, she spat straight into Emily's face. "May your stolen money choke you." Sticky saliva dripped down Emily's cheek as the crowd jeered. She fled. Her heart hammered painfully against her ribs. She sprinted to the parking lot, her only sanctuary, wanting nothing more than to lock herself inside her old sedan and disappear. But she froze. All four of her tires were slashed into ribbons. And carved deep into the hood, with vicious strokes of a key, was one word. Thief. The last of her strength evaporated. Emily slid down the side of the car until she hit the asphalt. The victory over Nathan suddenly meant nothing. Margaret Carter didn't need lawyers. She had unleashed the mob. "Take it all," Emily whispered. "Take the house, the money, the company, just leave me alone." But she didn't call Alexander. Didn't surrender. Her feet carried her to the only place without Instagram, the small, quiet community church. Inside, incense and melted wax filled the air. The evening service was over, only peace remained. Emily lit a thin candle, staring at the icon of the Virgin Mary. She didn't know any prayers. She just needed silence, strength, air. Then, praying? Really? A sharp voice stabbed the quiet. Emily turned. Vanessa Carter stood behind her, hair messy, makeup smeared, still wearing her expensive coat but looking wrecked. She reeked of stale alcohol. "Not here," Emily whispered. "Please, let's not." "Where then?" Vanessa snarled. "You're in my house. My bank account. My life. You ruined everything. My fiancé left because of you." She lunged forward, grabbing Emily by the coat lapel and slamming her back against the cold wall. "I'll destroy you," Vanessa hissed. "I'll throw acid in your face. You hear me? Sign the waiver for the property or I'll do it right now." She raised her manicured nails toward Emily's eyes. "Take your hands off her." A deep, commanding voice echoed through the churchyard. Both women froze. A tall man stepped out of the shadows in a flawless cashmere coat. Ethan Walker. Vanessa's ex-fiancé. The wealthy heir she was supposed to marry 3 days ago. The golden boy of Atlanta society. Vanessa's expression flipped instantly, pathetic and desperate. Ethan, baby, thank God you came. But Ethan didn't even look at her. His eyes were fixed on Emily, calm and respectful. You're Emily Carter? He asked. Emily pressed herself against the wall and nodded. I reviewed the audit report you sent to the Davis Freight shareholders, Ethan said. Very professional. Especially the sections on falsified reports and misuse of funds. Vanessa's face drained of color. Ethan, it's all fake. She's lying. Don't listen. He turned toward her, and the disgust in his eyes was palpable. Fake? He echoed. My legal team verified every detail. Your family isn't just bankrupt, Vanessa. You're criminals. Vanessa shook her head rapidly, panic overtaking her. And that accident last year? Ethan continued. You told me you hit a pole. It was a child. A child, Vanessa. I can explain, she stammered, reaching for him. Ethan stepped back sharply. Don't touch me. He pulled a small velvet box from his coat. The engagement ring box. It was empty. You pawned the ring yesterday, he said coldly. My family was notified. Vanessa collapsed into silent sobs. Ethan raised his voice so everyone near the church could hear. We are done. I will not marry into a family of frauds and liars. You are not my equal, Vanessa. You're just pretty packaging with nothing inside. Then he turned back to Emily. He nodded, respectful, acknowledging her strength. I apologize that my former fiancée caused you distress, Ethan said coldly, his tone cutting through the night air. If she approaches you again, call me. My security team will explain the rules of conduct to her, faster than the police ever could. With that, Ethan turned sharply and walked toward the church gates where a sleek, tinted SUV waited for him. The driver opened the door immediately. Ethan didn't look back. Vanessa stood frozen in the middle of the churchyard, mouth opening and closing like a dying fish. Her perfect future, the one she'd tried to buy, manipulate, and scream her way into, had just driven away. Her knees buckled. She collapsed onto the cold cobblestones and let out a guttural wail, not of heartbreak, but pure, burning humiliation. She had lost everything. Emily looked at her, at the broken, unhinged woman clawing at her own hair, and felt nothing. No pity. No regret. There was only one step left. Emily walked out of the church grounds. The tremor in her hands faded with each breath of cool night air. Nathan was buried under debt. Vanessa was abandoned and disgraced. Margaret's empire was crumbling. For the first time in a week, Emily felt she might sleep without fear. She headed toward her vandalized car, ready to call a tow truck. But before she even reached for her phone, WEEOOO. WEEOOO. Sirens tore through the quiet street. A police cruiser skidded around the corner, tires screeching. It swerved sharply and blocked her path. Two officers jumped out. Emily Carter, one barked. Yes, that's me, Emily said, stepping back. If this is about my tires, I'm the victim here. My car was. Hands on the hood, the officer shouted, grabbing her arm. What? Why? You are under arrest for suspicion of felony fraud under Section 1590, subsection 4. What are you talking about? Emily gasped. Fraud? I haven't done anything. Cold metal snapped around her wrists. Handcuffs. Tight. We'll sort it out at the precinct, the officer said, shoving her into the back of the cruiser. Her phone was snatched away. Alexander couldn't be reached. She was utterly alone. The fluorescent lights buzzed harshly. Drunks mumbled on benches. Detectives trudged by with dead eyes. Emily wasn't taken to a holding cell. They marched her to a small office at the far end of the hall. A police captain sat behind the desk, jowly, red-faced, and radiating the smugness of a man long accustomed to envelopes stuffed with cash. A thick case file lay on his desk. "Have a seat, Ms. Carter," he said, gesturing toward a metal chair bolted to the floor. "Well, looks like you ran pretty far. Thought you were smarter than everyone?" "I have no idea what you're talking about," Emily said firmly, though fear twisted inside her. "I want my lawyer. I have the right to." The captain smirked, lit a cigarette, and blew smoke directly at her. "A lawyer won't save you. This case is clear. Your mother-in-law filed a complaint. And we've got rock-solid evidence." He tossed a document toward her. It was the deed of gift, the one transferring the house and company to her. "This is legal," Emily said. "It was notarized." "Wrong." He slapped down a second sheet. "A fresh handwriting analysis done today shows your husband's signature was forged. And Margaret Carter's signature on the deed? Also forged." Emily froze. "That was impossible. They signed those papers in front of me." "You forged them," the captain said smoothly. "You slipped your husband fake documents or signed for him while he slept. Then you bribed a notary to stamp them." He paused, smiling cruelly. "Except one problem. The notary you supposedly used died last year." "Very convenient." Emily's pulse roared in her ears. Margaret had gone to the bank. She had rewritten the past. If the documents were declared forged, Emily wouldn't just lose everything. She'd go to prison for a decade. "That's a lie," Emily whispered. "There are records." "We'll check the registry," he said with a wink. "But right now, I have sworn testimony from your mother-in-law. She says you threatened her. Blackmailed the whole family." He stood up, walked around the desk, and leaned close. His breath reeked of sweat and cheap tobacco. "You're in deep, sweetheart. The district attorney listens when Margaret Carter speaks. You'll be in county lockup tonight, and trust me, you won't survive long in there." He slid a blank sheet of paper and a pen toward her. "But there's an easier option. You confess. Say you were jealous, greedy, wanted the high life. Admit you forged the signatures. We downgrade the charges. Probation. You hand back the property. Then you go live with mommy in the countryside." Emily stared at the blank page. It was a trap. If she signed, she was finished. Part of her wanted to, just to make this nightmare stop. But then she heard Alexander's voice in her mind. "Emotions are for the weak. Facts are a weapon." She lifted her chin. "Captain," she said, her voice steady, "are you aware that submitting falsified expert testimony violates U.S. Code Title 18, Section 155? His eyes narrowed. "Don't get smart with me." "I recognize the expert's name," Emily continued. "Grimoff AV. He was stripped of his license 2 years ago for fabricating evidence. His opinion means nothing legally." The captain's face mottled red. "How dare you?" "I am speaking in the language of the law," Emily interrupted. "I refuse to sign anything. Under the Fifth Amendment, I will not testify against myself. And I want it recorded that you are pressuring me with falsified evidence." He slammed his fist on the table. "I can throw you into a cell right now," he snarled. "They'll teach you the Constitution real fast. Sign the paper." He grabbed her shoulder, squeezing until she gasped. "Sign it, or you won't leave here in one piece. Margaret Carter paid good money to make sure you disappear." Emily's breath caught. Tears stung her eyes. But she did not look away. "I will not sign." The captain raised his hand. And then, boom, the door exploded inward. The lock ripped clean out of the frame. 2 unconscious officers lay in the hallway behind him. And standing in the doorway, Alexander Reed. No coat. No expression. Just cold, lethal fury burning in his eyes. "Take your hands off her," he said softly. The captain stumbled backward, trembling. Who are you?" he whispered. The captain shrieked when he saw Alexander step forward. He yanked at his holster, fingers shaking. "This is a secure facility. I'll shoot." Alexander didn't even glance at the gun. He simply shifted aside, allowing someone else to step into the office behind him. A small, thin elderly man entered, stooped shoulders, tremoring hands, thick glasses, and a battered leather briefcase clutched to his chest. The captain's face went corpse white. Sergei Ivanovich," he stuttered. "But Margaret Carter said you were dead." The old man adjusted his glasses with a slow, steady motion. "Reports of my death," he said dryly, "have been greatly exaggerated. I was peacefully growing tomatoes on my farm until this gentleman," he nodded respectfully toward Alexander, "told me that my good name was being used as a prop in someone else's fraud." Emily blinked. Who is he?" Alexander moved to her side, positioning himself between her and danger like a shield. "He's the original notary who handled the transfer 3 years ago," Alexander said. "The one Margaret was certain had died. The one she thought she had erased." The notary, Robert Ellington, opened his battered briefcase with trembling but determined fingers and pulled out an old laptop. 3 years ago," he began, voice thin but sharp, "Mrs. Margaret Carter stormed into my office demanding I process a retroactive transfer. She wanted to hide assets from an IRS audit." He shot the captain a pointed look. "I refused to falsify a federal record. But I agreed to process the deal legally." "Those are just words," the captain barked, even as sweat dripped down his temples. "Your word against theirs." Robert Ellington's lips curved into an old man's smirk. "I am old-fashioned," he said quietly. "I back up every transaction on camera." He turned the laptop toward the captain and pressed play. The grainy video filled the room with sound. Emily, younger, frightened, sat clutching her purse. Margaret towered over her. Margaret on video, screaming, "Sign it, you idiot! Quickly! I have to hide all this under your name before the IRS freezes my accounts. You're just a placeholder, understand? You'll give it all back in a year." Emily on screen trembled. "Nathan, is this even legal?" Nathan swaggered into frame, younger, confident, careless. "Just sign, Emily. Mom said we have to. We're putting the house and company in your name so the marshals don't seize anything. You're just the temporary owner." The notary in the video asked. "Miss Carter, are you signing voluntarily?" Margaret shoved forward. "She's voluntary. Just stamp it." The video ended. The silence was deafening. Alexander stepped forward, voice low and icy. "This isn't just proof the signatures are genuine. It's evidence of tax evasion, coercion, and conspiracy to conceal assets. And it proves your expert is a fraud." He plucked the case file from the captain's limp hands. "So here's the deal, Captain." The room seemed to shrink around Alexander as he spoke. "You have 2 choices. Option 1. I send this recording, and your interrogation footage, to Internal Affairs and the FBI. You get arrested with Margaret for fabricating a criminal case. Option 2. You release Emily Carter immediately, drop the charges for lack of evidence, and file a countersuit against Margaret Carter for fraud and filing a false report." The captain's legs buckled. He collapsed into his chair, staring at the floor. "Unlock her," he muttered. The officer unclipped Emily's cuffs with shaking hands. The metal fell to the ground with a harsh clatter. Emily rubbed the red marks on her wrists as Alexander held out his hand. "Come on," he said softly. "We're not done. The final act is tomorrow." They walked out into the cool night. Emily inhaled deeply. "You knew he was alive?" she asked quietly. "I hoped," Alexander answered, opening the SUV door for her. "Now we have everything we need, not just a shield, but a sword." He looked toward the horizon. Tomorrow, we end this. Judgment Day. Sunlight blasted across Royal Heights, bright, merciless, exposing every sin the Carter family had buried. Not one car but an entire convoy pulled up to the mansion gates. Alexander's black SUV. Emily's new silver car. 2 U.S. Marshals vans. A confiscation truck. Neighbors peeked over fences. Phones filmed from porches. For years, Margaret Carter strutted like royalty here. Now the crowd gathered to watch her fall. Emily stepped out of her car, wearing a sharp white suit and dark sunglasses. There was no trace of the gray mouse she once was. Alexander stood beside her. Proceed, he ordered the marshals. Sparks flew as they cut the lock on the gate, like fireworks celebrating the death of the Carter dynasty. The front door burst open. Margaret stumbled out in a silk robe, hair wild, face gray and puffy. "What are you doing?" she screeched. "This is private property. I'll call the district attorney." The chief marshal didn't even flinch. "The police are already here, ma'am," he said, nodding toward the patrol car. "We have a writ of execution for immediate eviction and property seizure." "Eviction? What debt?" Margaret gasped. Alexander stepped forward. "Your son signed an acknowledgement of debt for $15 million. Plus interest. Plus court costs. This mansion now belongs to Emily Carter." Margaret's eyes snapped to Emily. "You," she hissed. "You snake. You cursed my family." Emily checked her watch. 29 minutes left, she said calmly. Nathan stumbled out next, unshaven, shaking, hollow-eyed. Vanessa followed, clutching a fur coat. "That coat is seized," a marshal said. "It's mine." Vanessa sobbed. "It was a gift." "Receipt?" "No." "Into the truck." Vanessa broke down wailing. Marshals removed TVs, artwork, antique furniture, cases of wine, everything the Carters once bragged about. Emily watched with an eerie calm. It felt like watching a cancer being removed from her life. Then Nathan saw her. He bolted through the yard, falling to his knees in front of her on the cobblestones. "Emily, Emily, please," he begged, grabbing for her jacket. She stepped back. "Don't touch me." He wept openly. "I'm sorry. We were wrong. Mom is old. Vanessa is broken. We have nowhere. We're family, Emily. 10 years we were together." He clutched at her hands. "Please, leave us the house. We'll live together. I'll be a good husband. I swear." Behind him, Margaret stood silent, trembling. Margaret Carter said nothing. She just stared at her son, humiliated, dusty, kneeling in front of me like a broken man, praying my heart would melt. Vanessa stopped sobbing too. For the first time all morning, there was hope in her eyes. But when I looked at Nathan Carter, I felt absolutely nothing. No memories. No love. No ache. Just emptiness. Standing there wasn't a husband. It was a parasite who had lost access to the body he'd been feeding on. I slowly removed my sunglasses so he could see my eyes. "Stand up," I said. Nathan practically jumped to his feet, smiling through tears, ready to embrace me. "You forgave." "No," I cut him off, voice cold. "Stand up so you can hear me clearly." My tone hardened into granite. "You keep talking about family, Nathan, about our wedding." I turned, letting the neighbors, the U.S. Marshals, and the entire ruined Carter family hear me. "Well, let me remind you of something. At your sister's wedding, you told me the only truth you ever spoke in 10 years. Nathan froze. "You said, 'You are not family to us. You're just here to eat for free. Don't expect the same rights as we have.'" Gasps rose from behind the fences. Nathan's face drained of blood. "I learned my lesson that day," I said. "And now you'll learn yours." I stepped closer, meeting his eyes without an ounce of sympathy. You are not my family. None of you ever were. You didn't treat me like family, you treated me like a servant. Like a meal ticket. I gestured around the mansion as marshals carried out priceless artwork and wine crates. The banquet is over. And the bill has arrived. Nathan opened his mouth to beg again, but I lifted my palm sharply. Alexander. The papers. Alexander Reed stepped forward and placed a folder on the hood of my car. Margaret staggered down the porch steps. What is that? Are you giving us back the house? I took a pen from my purse. This house, I said, looking at the cracked molding and lifeless windows, is rotten. It reeks of greed, lies, and betrayal. I don't want it. I signed the papers with a dramatic flourish. I, Emily Carter, am selling this land, the mansion, and all assets of Carter Freight and Logistics, to Alexander Reed's investment group. Vanessa gasped. You're selling it? Yes, I said. For $70 million. Margaret's knees buckled. She grabbed the railing for support. That money, I continued, is already in my personal account. Right now, I no longer own your debt, or your home. I nodded toward Alexander. He does. Alexander's slow, predatory smile spread. And I, he said, turning to the family, have entirely different plans for this property. He pointed at the mansion. I'm tearing it down. Every brick, every wall, gone. This land will become a community park. A place for families. Real families. Margaret's face collapsed. No, you can't. She pressed a hand to her chest and sank down on the steps. Nathan's voice cracked. And us? Where do we go? We have nothing. I reached into my purse and pulled out a thin white envelope. I tossed it into the dirt at his feet. There's $300 inside, I said. Enough to rent a tiny studio near the industrial zone for a month. And enough food for pasta, bread, and basics. Nathan stared at it in horror. Consider it charity, I said. A donation for the homeless. I tilted my head. After all, you said I came here to eat for free. I slid my sunglasses back on. Now it's your turn. You monster. Vanessa shrieked, lunging at me. Alexander's security team stepped forward instantly, forming an unbreakable wall. I can do this, I said calmly. Because I owe you nothing. Not anymore. I got into my car. The engine purred, clean, powerful, liberated. Alexander climbed into his SUV as U.S. Marshals sealed the doors of the mansion and forced the Carter family outside the gate. I began to drive away slowly. In my rearview mirror, I saw the final image of the Carter dynasty. Margaret Carter, once the queen of the neighborhood, was sitting on the curb sobbing as her makeup streaked down her face. Nathan bent down to pick up the envelope, only for Vanessa to tackle him, clawing for the money. They screamed. They pushed. They fought each other like wild animals. The neighbors recorded everything. By tomorrow morning, every phone in the city would have footage of the Carter downfall. But I didn't care. I turned onto the highway, pressed the gas pedal, and let the car surge forward. The past shrank behind me. For the first time in 36 years. My life finally belonged to me. And that brings this intense story to a close. Wow, what an ending, right? Even I felt chills when Emily dropped that envelope like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Now I want to hear from you. Did Emily do the right thing? Was this justice, or was it cruelty? Should she have shown mercy? Or did they deserve every second of that downfall? And tell me honestly. Do you want a part 2? Should I show what Emily does with her new wealth? Does she find happiness? Do the Carters survive, or fall even deeper? Let me know in the comments. If this story grabbed your attention, hit like, subscribe, and click the box that appears in the middle of the screen. There you'll find more powerful stories just like this one. See you in the next one. Stay strong, stay wise, and take care.